Hello, ladies and gentlemen, like here, adulting Ellie, like, welcome back to Kid Dracula, and this time, we're on a spaceship? No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna be on a spaceship later. Sort of. This particular level, we're on a floating pirate ship thing. I don't know. Makes as much sense as anything else. And yes, by the way, I use my attacks a lot in order to either attack certain enemies or just to deal with some of the minor inconveniences here and there. By the way, I don't know whether or not I think I did talk about the whole health system in this game, but I'm just gonna refresh it just real quick. You only get a certain amount of like special upgrader point things, like heart container things, which extend your hit point things from, like, you know, 1 heart to 2 heart to 3 heart, you know, those types of things. You can only obtain 5 hearts, which I think is kind of dumb. I mean, you could get one more space in there and have 6 hearts, but the game doesn't do that. So keep that in mind. You can only get 5 hearts of hit point damage before you just max out, basically. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. And there's not much health in any of the levels unless they drop from enemies, which I don't know. So that's why I'm both careful and sort of like cautious as I fire and just shoot and just basically take people out. Those things are going to be somewhat annoying to deal with because these things aren't normal enemies. You have to physically hit them when they put their shield down or hit them from behind, so they're a little bit more tougher to deal with. But here I think is where the upside down ability works the best. You remember that ability we just got, or sort of got? Yeah, it's useful here, sort of. I don't know. I will say most of the levels at least bother making most of the levels at least, you know, essential with their specific little gimmicks in mind. For example, some of the previous levels like had you using the homing shot a lot, at least to some degree. The bat level was optional and it did serve some integralness to it, so you could have used the bat ability to fly around without too much trouble, but it was pretty useful in those specific areas because I think it was mainly tailor-made for those specific areas. But the upside down one didn't really get anything really up until now, I think. At least I think so. Maybe I could be wrong. I know there's one power-up that doesn't do that because, like, well, you have this power-up, but you don't use it right away. Like, I think it's the bomb power-up, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure. But you'll see that later when we get to it. Whew. I will say, though, that this particular level is both difficult in terms of certain little problems here and there. You'll see what I mean later on in the level. But other than that, how is the rest of this particular, like, levels with these particular power-ups? Well, the health system itself is a bit different in terms of trying to figure out how it works, what you're supposed to do, what you can do, what you can't do. So keep that in mind as things happen. It's a lot harder to explain, honestly, and it's more difficult to try and show it to you what exactly happens. At least to some degree. But let's start off with the obvious answer here. Ugh. You see, these things are annoying to deal with, but thankfully you can deal with the bottom one because... oh, Jesus. I actually didn't know whether or not these things could actually respawn or not, so I was kind of worried there for a second. But anyway... yeah, this is a little bit tricky. What I'm trying to do here is trying to go down so that way I don't trigger anything. I'm trying to move to the right so that way I can go over here. This is one of those free health extension things. You can only get 5, so, you know, I didn't bother trying to go anywhere else because there was nowhere else to go. And then I had to deal with this guy again. Trying to get through, like, this is kind of where I call a little bit of BS because these enemies can't be hit from behind and you can't duck under them. There's no real way around them and they don't stop. And even if you do hit them fast enough, like sort of like enough times, it takes a little bit of a while to get used to them at least. To some degree, they're a little bit BS because it's like, well, it's like if you hit them enough times, yeah, they're gonna be going down, but it's like, Okay, this is where I'm talking about. Oh. It's like, oh come on, I'm trying to hit them, but they keep on hitting me, and like, that's kind of unfortunate that I lost some health, but that's kind of dumb, honestly. But I guess that's just me complaining, I really don't know. But, you may be wondering, what exactly do you fight on this pirate ship? Well, apparently you fight this bigger enemy of those previous enemies, which I'm assuming is a scythe-wielding, fish, witch, or just scythe-wielding fish. I'm not sure what exactly she's supposed to be, or what it is exactly. I mean, the other ones were somewhat more noticeable. A chicken, chasing Voorhees, some ghosts. But this wasn't really too difficult. But there is another phase. You may be thinking, well, what else do you fight on this pirate ship, floating ship thing? Well, apparently, you face off against a robot. Yeah, that's something they thought they needed to have on a ship. That's about Dracula. Kid Dracula. I understand there's some robotic stuff in, like, the Castlevania lore and stuff. But even then, this is a little bit much. Here I thought I was gonna die, pretty much, because I only had one hit left. But apparently I was wrong, because I'm more skilled than I think I am. This game isn't hard, it's just a little bit more harder to grasp in certain degrees in terms of stuff. Let's see, this bomb power-up is what I think the one I'm talking about, because it's like, well, like most abilities can be used in the next ones, and you could use them for the next one, and they sort of are built around that. But this one isn't, because the next level isn't something you can break blocks with. Oh yeah, this, by the way, a message from the castle has arrived. Oh yeah, this. I think it's something special that happens if you've gone through most of the levels of the game without dying, I think. It's a special thing, I think. Much stronger, too. But, oh, sorry if I didn't read it. You're still not there. You got a long way to go from here. Use the bat umbrella, loved by your father. I've taken good care of it. I'm in your absence, so it may be some use to you. I've just given it to Bat, so it should reach you any minute. So, you know, that's just it. This power-up, I think, is only available if you've not been killed or lose your hearts at this point, I think. I don't know, I could be wrong. But this is useful for a lot of places. It blocks most projectiles and can kill some enemies if you charge into them, but only some. This is a very important umbrella for a count. Take care not to lose it. So long, Master. I shall wait for your safe computer hacking noises. I'm in. This is the sub-enemy, not the main enemy. Long time no see, kid. Dracula. Last time you defeated me, but it won't be so easy this time. You will understand true fear when you meet Dragamoth. You'll always be just a child. Ha ha ha. This thing, I have no idea who he is, but he is one of the subordinates of Dragamoth, or whatever his name is. And you'll be fighting him by going up. I don't know whether or not this is the natural way you're supposed to go, or whether or not this happens when you get the umbrella. I don't know, it could be either or. But for now, you have to deal with going up these particular flight of stairs while jumping onto platforms. And while dealing with enemies on these platforms. Seems kind of much, but whatever. This isn't so much a level as it is just the reach to the mid-boss, sub-boss. I can never define these names, particularly for these particular boss name things here and there. It's a little bit harder to explain. But for now, the sub-boss here is a little bit difficult if you don't know what you're doing. And it can be a little more tougher, but thankfully, certain attacks here and there work pretty well with him. I will say, the umbrella, I'm not sure whether or not you can only get that if you haven't died yet, like up until this point, if you have enough lives to not get it continue. I could be wrong, maybe there's more to it, I don't know. In all honesty, I just don't know. He's like, I know for a fact, like, to some degree at least, to some degree, that I'm pretty sure you won't get that, umbrella bat thing normally, unless of course it's due to some other things. But I could be wrong here and there. By the way, in order to damage this guy, it's specifically at times when he's about to throw his, before or after he's you know, thrown his lightsaber thing. That's basically the best time to hit him. And be careful with his lightsaber laser, because he will, like, hit you with it by charging you at full power. Be careful, by the way, he sometimes jumps either forward towards you or back away from you. So keep that in mind as you get through this entire boss fight. But this one's a bit of a pain in the butt. You see, this time this guy loses his figurehead, his armor. So you're gonna have to aim directly at his head, which is a little bit smaller target. He goes back and forth sometimes, but he really can't really do much without a physical object to help him with. So what you have to do here is basically have to move away from his bombs, or at least move enough to get away from certain places in order to not die. Unlike me, I kind of just stood there and let him hit me. I think at least to some degree, at least from what I've seen, the umbrella protects you most of the time from projectiles that come from the side and from above you, which usually most things do. But if a projectile does come at you from the side while you're trying to protect from above, like you're crouching down with the umbrella, yeah, it's not going to end well for you, because most of the time the umbrella will in fact not work, because it comes from the side and you can't protect your side. So only use the umbrella specialty things when it really, really matters. Like, I guess when it's like, when you're hiding directly under it, like really, really, like when something is directly above you, that's the point, like when you're supposed to use it. At least that's what I think, at least, I don't know. I just find this second form a little bit more annoying than the first, because, well, it's not really the greatest, and it's a little harder to deal with. The bombs themselves can be telegraphed easily, it's just, I'm kinda dumb, and I decided to opt to doing the more, what do you call it, lazy way. Basically, I'll switch out between the umbrella and my other attack that can actually hit this guy a couple of times, so I think, oh hey, this seems like a good idea. On paper, it's kinda dumb, but in all honesty, I don't know, I just thought it was okay of an idea. But then again, some of my other ideas aren't the best, and I usually do go with them, but whatever. Anyway, after dealing with them, it's not really all that hard, really. You just gotta kill him after he comes out of his suit of armor. Although, if you do kill him with a special ability, you get a coin that gives you a lot of money. Which I'm not sure what, like, why just him, why does he get the special huge money thing, but whatever. This particular level is a lot more tougher in terms of just straight up, like, oh god. But at least this level, at least some of the levels at least incorporate some of the stuff you've already learned and or gained. Such as using the upside down spell again, because at least that's used more than once at least. The other spells are useful in their regards to just being used as weapons. The bat one could be just replaced by the bomb or the homing one, but at least there's something at least. At least they have some substance to them. Not fully, but at least some. I will say, though, that, you know, it's not the greatest system ever, but at least something. By the way, that's something you can actually do with your umbrella. You can block most attacks and physical weapons here and there. Even enemies can bounce off it, as long as they're sort of like a projectile of some sorts. Either way, it doesn't really work too well here, and I kind of suck at jumping, by the way. But yeah, those pillars of fire will come out of the ground more than once sometimes. Sometimes 3 times maybe, I'm not sure. But you really gotta get your timing down, so be careful there. I'm just kinda glad they don't have a lot of fire and stuff going around around you as you go down and around, because that would have been way too much. Even kind of dumb at least in my opinion, would have been dumb. I like doing that, honestly. It's like, no, you can't. You just can't. You won't be able to get past my umbrella of steel. Thankfully, though, the umbrella is at least not terrible. It's just usable. My only issue with the umbrella is that it really can't kill off most enemies. It does push back enemies. It's just not used in a weapon sort of way, which I really wish it could have been. Because there's a lot of umbrellas you could be using as weapons, and a lot of other weapons that have been umbrellas before. At least in, like, showing-wise. Like, you can show exactly how you can use an umbrella to kill someone. Either as a fictional weapon or otherwise. Because you can't get killed by an umbrella, by the way. I think there was a swords... Yeah, I suck. There was a sword-swallowing guy who might have accidentally swallowed an umbrella, and unfortunately, he died from that. So, you know, be careful. Don't swallow your umbrella. As, you know, a life lesson, everyone should just follow it in general, honestly. But, yeah. The power-ups in this game are pretty decent, pretty fun, honestly. I think they're pretty okay. I found them to be mostly entertaining, at least useful, and multi-purpose, I guess, to some degree. I think my favorite out of all of them is technically the bomb or the homing shot. At least I think so. The homing shot is great because, well, it's a homing shot, and the bomb is very powerful. I think the bomb is the most powerful ability you can get in this game, at least in my thoughts on it, at least. I'm not sure whether or not if you do die in the game and actually have to restart with your 3 live healths, you can get the umbrella again. But I guess it's a little bit of an incentive to anyone who, you know, bothers getting so far into the game for that. It's like, oh hey, you made it this far without dying throughout the entire game? Okay, let me give you this. I'm not sure whether or not it gives it to you regardless, because that was a cutscene you just saw. That was a cutscene that just showed off the mid-boss guy that was a, you know, hired gun to... What's his name? Garamoth. I can never pronounce the dude's name, honestly. It's always like a blank to me. I always want to say like Belmont. I always want to say Belmont because it's like, well, it's a Castlevania game, and yes, I'm still gonna harp on the fact that this is a Castlevania game. So you think, oh hey, you know, it's Garamoth, right? No, it's like Belmoth, right? No, it's some strange alien demon that for some reason has beef with Dracula before he was an adult. I don't know. But I will say the umbrella is useful, very much useful here, because it's both good for blocking any rocks that come at you, as well as any enemies charging towards you. Usually charging enemies or small projectiles will immediately either die or be blocked off, which is pretty good, honestly. So keep that in mind. But it's not good against other enemies that aren't either easily killed in one hit or possibly don't charge at you. I'm assuming, at least. I've tried it a couple of times, but not fully. And now we have to deal with this lion thing. This flying lion guy. I have no idea what he is. But here's the gimmick with him. Basically, the platforms on you will always drop in specific orders. And it's usually those 3. The middle 3 are the only ones that'll ever really go down. So be careful, because, you know, if you're not in one of those ones that go down when it goes down, you're going to be a little bit in a bind. Anyway, it usually isn't a sort of pattern sort of like thing. It usually goes from left to right, at least, every single time. And then, you know, after you get to the end of one, it goes straight back to the other one. It really all depends on which platform starts off at the very beginning of your fight with this guy. You know, it could always start off on the middle one and then it goes to the right. It could always go on the very right one and then start off on the far left. You can always go on the left and just, you know, keep going down. So keep that in mind. I think that's the pattern at least. I mean, it could be different anytime each one of those platforms go down, but most of the time it's usually left to right at least. By the way, I call BS on that because I was in the middle of killing that thing and I died to when it split apart. I knew it split apart, but still, that's still kind of dumb how they just kill you after you beat the boss. But whatever, I'm able to deal with it and I just push on through, I don't care. Let's see, this is what I mean. Usually it's sort of left to right, but sometimes depending on the ones you step on or which one you start on, it sort of changes. This time it went from left to right to left. I think, at least. Like sometimes the pattern's different, but I think the pattern, there is a pattern, and I think it's every other one, like, sort of skips over to the next one, or whatever one hasn't been done. Whichever one has been done, it's gonna be usually the one on the right of it, at least I think so. I know, I could be wrong. This boss is a little bit more difficult to get through, mainly because, like, you have to focus heavily on trying to do stuff, while it's trying to reset its own pattern here and there, and having to deal with these animals coming down. But I get through it, because guess what, this boss is just a sissy. You're just chicken. Cheep, 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 cheep. Okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. But this time, I make sure I'm prepared. Make sure not to get killed off by the freaking fact that it splits off into stupid little things. But I hope you enjoyed this episode of Kid Dracula. I'll see you all next time in the next video. Until then, sayonara my bots for the final episode of Kid Dracula. See ya. Sayonara.